Hey everybody, Tony D with a hot take on Donald Trump's Twitter. It's a constant barrage of stuff coming from Trump, but some interesting stuff came down today. First, of course, Twitter banned a tweet, they banned a tweet thinking like, oh, well, they do it under the guise of, as they say, this tweet violated the Twitter rules about civic and election integrity. He's the president of the United States. Anything he says is relevant. Doesn't matter what he says. And you are not the arbiters of the integrity of the election, Twitter, although you would like to be, and you pretend to be. So by banning the tweet, what happens? Well, here's Deadline, has a whole article about it. Twitter flags President Donald Trump tweet on mailboxes not being beer virus sanitized. So good luck in banning the information, dummies. So here's what he said. So now the Democrats are using the mail drop boxes, which are a voter security disaster. Among other things, they make it possible for a person to vote multiple times. Also, who controls them? Are they placed in Republican or Democrat areas? They are not beer virus sanitized. A big fraud. What part of that isn't true? I mean, that's basically true. The mail-in ballots, you can't control them. You can't control them at all. So I don't know what you're going to do. You cannot control someone who steals it out of a mailbox, fills it out, signs it, and sends it in. You can't control it if, I have a dead relative, I get his mail ballot, I fill it out, I send it in. You're not going to check that. Millions of ballots, they're not going to be checked. The only thing they're going to check for, did they fill it out properly? And if the person checking is a partisan, one way or another, they're going to flag all the votes for the person they don't like and let go all the votes that they do like. So let's be real here, okay? That's why we need a system where you go in and you vote. Because although that system has its flaws too, don't get me wrong, it's a lot harder to flag that system because, at least in New Jersey, what you do is you go in, you have to sign in, they have to confirm your ID, not like ID like your driver's license, but your signature is sort of the confirmation. Then you go into the voting booth, and once you sign in, then nobody else can come in and sign your name and then vote. They're not going to let another person do that. So it's sort of like a checklist, basically. So they're checking off people who live in the area. And, I live in a pretty small town of about 1,900 people. And in fact, I can go to the town hall and I could see how the entire town voted. They have a total tally of it. And I know that because last time I checked in the election, I was in town hall getting the doggy's license renewed. And I looked up on the wall and they had the tally. And I saw one person voted Libertarian. So it was kind of cool. It was like, oh, there I am. These things are tallied, and they got some computers. It's not totally computerized in New Jersey. It's like partially computerized. I think it is computerized, but inside the machine. But the outside of the machine has switches for the most part, or buttons. Still not quite there with the touch screens, but it's New Jersey, and we're a small town. We're talking like less than 2,000 people. We don't need a big machine. I think we have 2 voting machines. The integrity of, and of course it's a bunch of old people running the thing, and I don't know what they're going to do this year for that part. Whether or not the volunteers are going to be the same elderly people who tend to volunteer every year. Maybe they're looking for younger ones. I don't know. But I went down to the primary because I wanted to make sure, or see if I could vote in a libertarian primary, but I really couldn't because libertarians aren't big enough to really be, have their own deal in the libertarian primaries, at least in New Jersey. And I went down there just for the hell of it to reconfirm what I'm registered as. They couldn't really help me, and but it was the same elderly women running the show. So, it'll be fine if you go out. Wear your mask, social distance. It'll be fine. Don't mail it in. In my opinion, that's a dumb move. The other big thing he tweeted, A few days ago he said the DNC left under God out of their Pledge of Allegiance. And here is
To start our
the
program today, please join me in the Pledge of
DNC.
Allegiance.
This is the DNC caucus and council meeting for Muslim delegates and allies assembly. And he's got it right here on video, and he retweeted
I
it.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
See, he's supposed to say under God, where indivisible was. So, who knows? With a Muslim delegation, there may be a religious reason why they wouldn't say under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know. But according to Trump, there was at least 2 caucus meetings that removed under God from the Pledge of Allegiance, and obviously this is going to appeal to the more religious Republicans that they're removing God from the United States. And that's not a totally harebrained thing to say, because what you have to understand, the extreme left is mostly Marxist, and Marxists hate religion. They hate religion. Like, they believe, Karl Marx said that religion is the opiate of the masses. And while I'm not a religious person myself, I can understand why that would be upsetting to people. But at the same time, I think we all know why the Marxists want to get rid of under God. It's just because they're a bunch of a-holes. It has nothing to do with not wanting to indoctrinate people. They just want to indoctrinate people in their form of indoctrination as opposed to religious indoctrination. But these are the kinds of stuff that Trump tweets, and these little things he gets involved with every single day. He has a thing about the riots. These riots are anti-government movement from the left and are all in Democrat-run cities. The mayors have to let the police do what they know how to do. Would be very easy to suppress or call in the federal government. Will solve problem fast. It's true. He would. In fact, I believe that the local governments could probably solve it fast. And his top tweet right now is, actually, I think I'm leading in the polls at Fox News and OANN. And you can see that he gets a ton of retweets. Here he's got like 14,000.5 retweets and 21,000.1 comments. Now, the comments, a lot of times, they're very negative because mostly the people who are commenting are legacy media types, blue check marks. And you'll remember that there was a big lawsuit because Trump was trying to block people. And the judge ruled that since Twitter is a public forum, that he couldn't block people. And part of the reason for that, and part of the reason they pressed him on it, is because a lot of these blue checkmark journalists, quote unquote, they need the clicks. They criticize Trump. If they're the first one to criticize him, it's sort of like being first on YouTube, and they get tons of retweets, they get followers, and that translates into money to them, because in the world of the media these days, comics, publishing, news, if you've got a ton of Twitter followers, you have clout. Believe it or not. I mean, it's ridiculous because a lot of these people, Twitter is like screaming into the darkness a lot of times. Nobody responds. It's all about engagement. See, if you can have 1 million Twitter followers, but if you have no engagement, who cares? You could tweet something, nobody sees it. Everybody's muted you because you're boring, or they don't care, or they're just looking for followers and they just added you and muted you, which is what a lot of people do. They'll add you and mute you. They'll say, "Oh, I'll add you back if you add me," and then you add them, and then they just unfollow you because they're trying to get their ratio up. So there's all kinds of crazy tricks on Twitter. I don't recommend going on Twitter if you don't have a Twitter account, but if you do already, you really should follow the president because there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens here. Right, little Joan? Okay. All right, we'll see you next time.